Hello, this is Mark Leslie Lefebvre from the Stark Reflections on Writing and Publishing podcast, and I am honored to have with me during the week of our virtual book launch, Suzy Vadori. Suzy, welcome.
Thanks, Mark. Great to be here.
I have to ask before we get into this, what is that behind you?
This is a masterpiece that my kids and I constructed. It is actually a wall of wishes.
Oh my God, how appropriate.
This is all books. This is my new book that we're launching. So these are actual books. These are the spines. There's boards in between, and they made me a wall of wishes for my backdrop, and I am super pumped about it.
Oh my God, that's awesome. I love how apropos that is, the wall of wishes. I zoomed back just so people can see
it. Oh, it was supposed to look like it was like the whole thing, but yes, this is in my dining room. So
that is like perfect. There you go. Just to see how massive that pile of books is. So I want to get into that because launching a book during a time of physical distancing and isolation is going to be difficult. But before we get into that, so this Wall of Wishes is book 3 in a trilogy. The Fountain Trilogy. Could you talk a little bit about the first couple books and then where this fits in?
Absolutely, I would love to. So the Fountain, and I've actually got there's the 2 books on either side there. So the Fountain is book 1. This came out in 2015. And it's about 16-year-old Ava, and she moves from San Francisco to New England to find out more about her mom, who died when she was 10. And when she gets there, her reputation's preceded her, and the kids aren't very nice. And all kinds of crazy things happen to poor Ava. She gets really upset, and she runs into the woods. She finds a mysterious fountain, like the one that I haul all over Alberta with me, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And she throws a coin into that fountain, and she makes a wish that one of the girls that she just met had never existed. And when she returns to the boarding school that she attends, the girl is gone, and absolutely everything in her whole life is different. Even her own family has changed. And she has to find out about the magic of the school that she goes to and the history of her own family. She meets a boy. There's a romance in it. It's a mystery. It's lots of fun. And then book 2 in the series is The West Woods. And this book was a lot of fun. It's actually a prequel. It happens the year before The Fountain, and this is Courtney on the cover, and it's her story. So it's how she went from being a regular kid and all the magical things that happened to her at the school and the wish that she made on the fountain and that came true, and how she found herself when we met her in the fountain. She quite frankly deserved to get wished away, and this is why. Oh, wow. So Wall of Wishes is the much anticipated book, because I kind of wrote a book and then I wrote a prequel, and then you guys had to wait a little while for this. Thank you for waiting patiently. But Wall of Wishes sums it all up. So it actually takes place after the fountain, and it's written from dual perspective. And this is Courtney and this is Ava, and they have to try to save the fountain because the West Woods are about to be destroyed. The school has sold them to build a road, and in that is the fountain that has granted wishes for almost a century. And so what they are afraid of is if the fountain's destroyed, that all the wishes throughout time will be destroyed. And Ava is particularly worried because there's a wish in there that her father made for her mother's love. And if that doesn't come true, then
she may not exist. It's like a Back to the Future kind of.
I know. We actually watched Back to the Future during the pandemic with my kids. It was tons of fun. I was like, hey, that sounds familiar, but it wasn't supposed to be like that. But yeah, it is kind of like that.
That is awesome. Well, thanks for laying that out. So when did The Fountain come out?
The Fountain came out in 2015. 15? Yeah, 5 years now. Yeah, almost 5 years. I think it was in December of 2015. So it's been quite the ride. At the time, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, but at the time that I launched The Fountain, I actually was working full-time as a vice president of a company. And then I started doing all these things, and we'll talk about it. And now I write full-time, whatever that means. So I do all kinds of things around writing to kind of make a living, and it's tons of fun.
So I want to get to that too, because the Wall of Wishes behind you, which is very meta and I love, is most indie authors go, well, wait a second, digital and ebooks and print on demand. I have to pause for 1 second because Marge says, great Wall of Wishes. Thanks, Marge. Appreciate that. But most indie authors are thinking, well, you've got print on demand and digital files and stuff like that. Why would you have so many physical copies? Now, I know the answer to that, but this is a leading question.
Yeah, it's a little bit crazy.
So with the first 2 books in the series, with The Fountain and with The West Woods, you sold way more print books than you did ebooks.
Yes. Yeah.
what did you do? How did you make that happen? And
Yeah.
those
So
were traditionally published, right?
yes, yeah. My publisher was Evil Alter Ego Press, and they do just YA books, and they are amazing, but they are a small press. And so what that means is that you don't have wide distribution, which I knew, and they were the perfect press for me for those 2 books. But you don't have a lot of distribution, so you're not in the bookstores. You end up being on consignment in bookstores, so you're providing the books. So if I want to be in the bookstore, I give them the books, and then they sell them and take their cut, which is hefty. And then, you know, I pay for everything else out of my pocket. But I also, I find because these books are targeted at teens, I do have lots of adult readers too, because there's that romantic angle to it, and they're kind of a light, fun read for adults. But I do, kids don't read ebooks the same way that adults do. So you do need to have physical copies. And you're right, you can get print on demand, but they don't have credit cards either. So it's difficult to sell to them online. And my strategy has really been to be there in person. So I do 3 young writers conferences across the province. I tour with the Young Alberta Book Society. I've gone on sponsored tours in Northern Alberta, across the province. I do all kinds of events, Comic-Cons. I do This Girl Can, like girl power events, to just get out there and talk to readers. And I've had a whole strategy around being out there and meeting people, and I've been able to sell thousands of books that way, and it's been incredible because then I meet readers, and that's how people discover my books. Of course, right now that's all changed.
Well, wait a second. I need to clarify something, because maybe people are listening and that you sold thousands of print books.
Yeah.
And your books are not, so with the publisher you were with, they didn't have distribution through like Chapters Indigo, like major chains, or any distribution beyond standard print on demand. Any bookstore anywhere could order it.
Correct.
So
yeah, and my publisher was also not returnable. And so I think, I'll just explain that for people who don't know what that means. And that's really common for small publishers, because the bookstores, if you're not returnable, they will not order. So you're right, Mark, they can order. The bookstore can order a buy, but they will not, because they can't return them. And what that means is, if the books don't sell, then the bookstores can actually just ship them back, or sometimes they even destroy them, and they just get full pop back. And for a small publisher, it just isn't worth taking that risk. And so, so it's a disadvantage for sure.
So a bookstore could order one in for a special order, but they're not going to regularly stock it unless there's a local author who's doing events in the store or is on tour. You said you were on tour throughout the province of Alberta?
Yeah. So in Alberta, there's some tours. There's 2 tours a year that are sponsored by the Young Alberta Book Society. And so what they do is they actually do school visits. So a big part of my job is actually being out there at schools. I do motivational talks about literacy, and I talk about my career and how it led me here, and all the different types of literacy, and why, reading and writing isn't just about making books or getting good marks in the classroom, but how it can actually change your life and change your perspective, and how you can use it in any career that you choose, and why it's so important. So I talk about that. But yes, the Young Alberta Book Society does tours in the spring that are sponsored by Synovus. And so those are generally in Northern Alberta, in areas that Synovus has a lot of presence. And then in the fall, they do Tailblazers, which is any school in Alberta can actually, they have to pay my fee, but the Young Alberta Book Society has sponsorships and grants that they actually pay for my travel. So they book you to go around, and they pay the travel. But so it's great because it gets schools that are kind of off the beaten path, that don't have a lot of authors around there. They can get any author in the province to come out, and all they have to pay is my speaker fee.
So you have a speaker fee.
Yeah.
A lot of authors are like, I'm just so happy to be here, and maybe someone will buy one of my books. But
don't do that. Don't speak for free.
So there's guaranteed income, and then you're selling.
Yeah.
I've heard that at some events you're selling hundreds of copies.
Yes, definitely. And with the schools, I mean, I don't push it. I try not to push it. But definitely I do get orders. There's schools that study the books in class, so then every student would get a copy, that type of thing. But yeah, no, I don't go and just talk about, like, there's authors that go out there and just try to sell their books. That's definitely not it, but we do send out an order form, and we sell quite a lot of books when I go and visit people. So they get excited about it. It's a cool story. It's a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun for kids to read it and then pass it on to their friends or to talk about it. So that's really, really cool too.
That's really, really cool. I'm just noticing Richard, who's actually a local author. We're a member of the same Cambridge Authors Group. And Richard said, that's amazing. We need a program like that in Ontario.
Yeah. So, well, hey, let's start it. I'll come and visit when all this is over.
So your background as a business leader, as a chief operating officer, as being in charge of major companies and marketing and all of those things, that led you to crafting these pretty spectacular launch events for books 1 and book 2, right? Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you've done for those in-person events, not necessarily the school tours, but the other events you've done?
Yeah, well, normally when I launch a book, it's really about having a party, right? And I want to support everybody that has supported me along this journey. And so, for the Fountain, we had a huge party at Wild Rose Brewery here in town. We had about 150 people come to this event, and it was absolutely amazing to just be there with my friends and family. And I didn't have any readers yet. I didn't have, that was my first book, right? I wasn't really as involved as I am now with the writing community. So it wasn't that type of crowd. It was just, giving back. And I offered them a free beer if they came. So they came, and we had a great party, and it was amazing. And people bought books, and that book hit the bestseller list that week because of it. And then again with Wall of Wishes, with the Westwoods, my book.
So wait a second, how did it hit the bestseller list? Because doesn't that have to sell through, an independent bookstore that's using Book Manager or?
Yeah, so they come out and sell the books at the launch event.
Oh, so the bookstore was there. Okay.
Yeah, the bookstore. Sorry, they weren't actually at the Fountain, but they were at the Westwoods. We had Owl's Nest Books come out and sell the books at the launch event, which for the Westwoods, it came out in 2000 and I'm going to forget this. I think it was 2017, at the end of 2017, September. And they came out and sold the books there. And that's how, so in Calgary, there's only 3 independent bookstores. And so only they report into the bestseller list for the Calgary Herald. And that rolls up into the national papers as well. And so if you sell stuff at Chapters, it doesn't count because they don't actually report their sales are at Indigo. So that was awesome. And that's why this time around, I've actually partnered with them again, even though I'm here in my home with all these books. Owl's Nest Books is, and it's something that Mark, you and I actually talked about early on when I said, hey, I'm going to do this. Do we have any ideas? And one of the things is to be like, hey, Owl's Nest is still here. Their local bookstores are still here. What are they doing in the pandemic? And tomorrow night, I'm actually going to go down there on site and interview the store manager and talk about that with her. But yeah, they've been incredibly supportive. There you go. They've been incredibly supportive, and so they're handling all the online stuff and all the deliveries. They're doing free deliveries in Calgary, and then people can just get it delivered all over North America, and I'm supporting them. And it's kind of, local bookstores are amazing, and I can't wait until we can do events there again, because a lot of people actually do their launches in the store. Right. For me, when I have 200 people, I can't jam them into a bookstore. Right. But yeah, no, they have so many events and are so supportive of our local community, local writing community. They are an incredible resource.
So tomorrow night, which is Tuesday, June 23rd, at the same time that we're doing this, Stacey Kondla is going to be interviewing you actually on location in the bookstore.
Yep.
With probably a wall of books behind you.
I don't think I'm hauling all these down to the bookstore. They've got some books. They've
got their own books too.
I'm not going to go build another wall.
and so that's part of that virtual event. But you have had readings in the woods and appearances on different podcasts, and you've got like a whole slew of material going on for the entire week. And I've got the bit.ly/wall pre-order, which is where you can pre-order a copy of the book. And so, Suzy, you're going to sign those copies of any of those orders that come through Owl's Nest Books this week. It's limited to just the full week, because you can't just keep doing that on an ongoing basis. You're going to sign them, and they're going to ship them anywhere in North America.
Correct. Yeah. So you can just go on Stat and you can order any of the 3 books. And if you want it personalized, just type it into the comments and tell me who it's personalized to. I'm going to sit there with hopefully a wall of books like this, and I'm going to sign them all and send them out. So come and buy them, please, because I don't want these in my dining room anymore.
So, I want to go back to something that I know you did at your previous events, and that was the use of props.
Yeah.
Talk about that, because again, you've got to capture the attention of people to get them to want to wonder what this book is about. How did you do that?
Yeah. So when I travel all over Alberta and to different events, I think I mentioned earlier, I actually have a stone fountain, and I should have brought it into the house, but it's outside. Anyway, I have a big stone fountain. It comes apart. I have a wagon that I bring it in, and I've actually had 3 fountains. They've broken because people help me. Can I help you with that? And then it like smashes, and they're just like they're stone like plaster. Anyway, they're working fountains. But the story behind this, actually, Mark, you probably don't know this story. When I had the first launch party talking about events for the fountain, I had this idea, like I just wanted it to be so cool. And the brewery is this huge space, and I wanted to have a working fountain in the middle of the space. So it's December, right? And I'm looking for a fountain. And so it's not really easy to find a water fountain in Calgary in December. And so I actually ordered one online, and I paid like, I don't know, something really stupid for shipping. And I'm talking with my husband about this, and my husband's amazing, like completely supportive of everything. And he's going like, you're nuts. Like, why are you paying for this fountain in December? You're going to use it once. Like, why don't we just do like make a paper fountain or something? And I was like, no, running water, the whole shebang, right? Like, this is what I wanted. Like, this is my book, and this is my party, and I was gonna have a fountain. So I bought this fountain, and I said to him, okay, here's the deal. I said, I'm gonna buy this fountain, but I promise you, it won't be just used once. I'm gonna take it everywhere. And he was like, yeah, you're not gonna take it everywhere. And then I ended up taking it everywhere. So I actually discovered really quickly, it's easy enough to fill the fountain. It's very difficult to unfill the fountain when you want to take it down.
Yes.
Right? So logistics.
Water can be heavy.
Yeah. And it's just messy. And it's like, it's curved and it's stone. And so you can't just take a bucket and get it all out. You got to take it apart and like have somewhere. It's December. I'm throwing it outside. And I got like 3 people. So I had this fountain. It's a 3-tiered fountain that looks a lot like the one on the book here. But then it doesn't have a huge base. And so I actually bought a turtle pool, and I spray painted it and put rocks around it to make like this extra layer. And that was also full of water. And so it was a big mess to clean up in December. And we ended up like pouring it outside in the parking lot. I'm sure we created all kinds of ice. So when I was going to these stores and I had my first couple of signings, I was like, whoa, what can I put in the fountain that isn't water? And oh, by the way, water in the bookstore, don't bring water into the bookstore.
No, it kind of ruins paper.
I wasn't really thinking, right? You have this fountain, and then some kid comes along and splashes your wall of wishes and off, like forget it. So yeah, so I didn't think that was going to go over very well. So I filled it full of lollipops. So it's a bit of a signature.
They don't destroy books unless like you've licked them and stick them inside the books, right?
Yuck. Well, it's kind of funny because sometimes kids are like, and I often when I'm talking to kids, I'll hand them the book and then they're reading the book while they're here, and I can just see that it's getting, because they're matte covers, I'm like wiping them off after. And hopefully they buy that book, and not that other one. But yeah, so I filled it full of lollipops, and then I brought coins. So I've been collecting pennies for 5 years. So I bring pennies. So here you were saying you use props. So what does that have to do with anything? It's about talking to your audience and offering them something. You guys have all been in a bookstore when you walk along and then people are like, hi, or they say nothing worse. They're sitting behind their table. I almost never sit. I stand there and I say, hi, can I offer you a wish today? And people say, what? Right? And then I have this bucket of pennies. I'm going to have to revamp this whole thing because none of this is going to fly in the time of COVID. These reusable pennies, right? And they're like, what do you mean you're giving me a penny? I'm confused. And then they say, no, I can use my own money. And I have to say, spoiler alert, like I'm going to empty the fountain when I'm done here. I'm going to get it back. You really don't need to use your own penny. It's pretty funny, but people just react in this really weird way. And then they think about it and they sit there and they make a wish on my fountain. And then we have a chat, and it's just a way to break the ice, right? And not everybody's going to be interested in a young adult romance book, but a lot of people are. And they want to talk to you about it, and they want to ask questions, and they want to meet the author. And sometimes it can be, you know, we talk about, as authors, I've coached so many people through this. It can be intimidating we don't want to be that person that's out there like, hi, buy my books, buy my books. So you've got to have some way to bridge that discussion. It can be really intimidating for somebody who's never met an author before to go and talk to an author. Like, you got to remember, it's both ways. It's not just, so to have that, you know, offer, and if they want to make a wish and then they don't want to hear about the books and they want to go on their way, they're still smiling because they just wished on a fountain, and maybe it will come true, right? So yeah, so my fountain has been amazing. When my next projects come out, I don't know, I'm going to have to come up with something else. But also, in the time of COVID, I don't think handing somebody a penny and then letting them fish through a bucket full of lollipops is probably going to fly. So I'm
probably not going to work.
Yeah, I'm brainstorming. I don't know what it'll look like yet, but it'll probably change.
Well, I have to pop up this comment from Jennifer, who says, engage and entertain, for sure.
Yeah, exactly, Jennifer, exactly. And then that's the thing, is you're there. Your books are, like, if you're entertaining as an author, then presumably your books are also entertaining, right? Like, make people see who you are as a person, and that is going to interest them enough to give it a shot, right?
Very, very cool. So let's talk about the time of COVID. So, like, you've done these big events at a brewery, of all amazing places to do an awesome event. Hey, you get a beer.
It's near and dear to your heart, right?
Very near and dear to my heart. But these big events, the lollipops, the pennies, and suddenly you're in the planning stages. So two things happened. I want to step back from this. Yeah. You ended up doing this book completely independently, although you still did do some collaborative work with your publisher on this. Could you explain that?
Well, so, and part of it is when you're with a small publisher, they can only, you know, most people are kind of doing this on the side, and they have a plan, and I didn't really fit into the plan because I was working on some other projects. So partially my fault. I didn't finish the book when we had talked about finishing the book. And they were totally cool with it. I did give them some warning. Hey, I'm going to work on this other project that ended up getting agented and is on submission. So hopefully we'll have some awesome news about that one soon. But I wrote that one first. And so I asked them for an extension of Wall of Wishes, which, I mean, they were totally fine with. So that was planned. But then I wrote it, when it happened, I wrote it much more quickly than I meant to. And I said, okay, it's done. Can we publish it now? And they were like, well, no, like, we have a whole schedule, right? So so we had a discussion, and they were fully supportive. And I said, hey, here's what's happening this April, which was this past April. I said, I'm going to be on tour. I'm doing all these young writers conferences. It's Comic-Con. It's all of these things. I said, it makes a lot of sense to put this book out in April. Can you guys do that? And they said, no, right? And they were like, well, why don't you just put it out yourself? And they offered. And so they actually supported me through the process. They did the layout, and you know, it's a really cool cool publisher. And so I guess I'm hybrid. But I did put a call out to, I think I made one post, and Mark, you were somebody who answered, and Jennifer that's on the call was somebody who answered. And I just said, hey, who are my self-pub gurus? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. There's this whole black box that I don't do, or I'd never done before. And so I just rallied a team around me, and we did it. And then the second thing happened, which is that all of the events that I was planning to launch at were canceled.
So you were going to launch this in April.
Yeah.
And it was going to be some big physical events and lollipops and pennies and all kinds of German festivities.
Lollipops and pennies and wishes and all the things that I know how to do, and I can almost predict with certainty exactly how many books I can sell. Like, I've done enough of these events that I've kind of got it. That's my business. I was an operations professional before, so I actually really enjoy that part of it. And it's something that I share with tons of authors. So hit me up. I'll share with you what I do. And people help me along the way. You know, Adam Dries is the master at at events, and he was the one who was like, why aren't you doing bigger events? And I was like, well, how will that work? And he kind of coaxed me into doing it, and then that was part of where I went with that.
Cool. So you've got the book launch events this week. How did that work? I mean, you already had a pre-existing relationship with Owl's Nest?
Yeah, they are amazing. I've had, like I said, they came to my last book launch to sell books. I've also they do something called Authors in the House here, or what is it called? I don't know. There's writers in the house, and then there's authors. Anyways, it's put on locally by
Authors in the Nest, maybe? No?
It's not Authors in the Nest. I think it's Authors in the House. I'm going to get it wrong. Sorry, Randy. But it's sponsored by When Words Collide, and through the committee that I'm on, and we can talk about that too. Another big in-person event that we're taking online. And that's every quarter. So sometimes we do readings that just showcase different authors. So every quarter there's usually 9 new authors with new books out. So they host all kinds of things for the community, and I try to stay involved. But yeah.
So it was just a matter of you, because you had the relationship, saying, hey, I was supposed to do this book launch, but I have an idea for a virtual launch where people can order my books through you.
Yeah.
Because you have the means to ship books and I don't. And you're a bookstore and you have the means to take credit cards.
Absolutely. And I think what was really cool was they really got on board. And we'll talk about this tomorrow night with Stacey, but basically the germ of the idea, and you and I, Mark, had sort of brainstormed, what is an online, I was like, what does an online launch even look like? And people came up with all kinds of ideas, and we ended up doing them all. So I don't know what. But
I couldn't decide. She's like, well, let's just do 7 days of events.
Let's do all of it. But yeah, I contacted them and I said, hey, I know it's kind of a pain, but like, would you guys like to do this podcast with me, or could we host you? Can we somehow highlight that you're still open in a local bookstore? And they came back like guns a-blazing, and they were like, absolutely. In fact, could you come down to the store, and we're going to be socially distanced and all that stuff. Could you come down to the store? Can we feature it here? Can we do it on location? What do you need? They were just absolutely amazing, because it's an opportunity for them too to speak to their audience and to remind people that they're still there and that they're willing to get creative with your launches to be that sort of personalized service, right? So now I'm talking about all this stuff, and I'll talk about it tomorrow. So I don't want to give all Stacey's sound bites away, right?
That's true. But the book is also available. People can buy it in ebook, as well as there actually is a print book available through other retailers should somebody want to order it from their own local independent bookstore. For example, I would be inclined to want to support Wordsworth Books here in Waterloo, because, I adore them. But of course, you get a personalized signed copy if you order it through Owl's Nest, which is quite amazing.
Yeah,
and then you'll be able to see the dining room wall again behind you once the Wall of Wishes gets wished into.
I hope it all goes away, and I think that's going to be cool. Like, what people don't realize is that those orders will come right to me, and I'll be like, "Oh, so and so ordered a book," and I'll sign it for you, and it will almost feel like we had a party. That's what
almost
I'm hoping
like we had
for.
a party.
That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah.
In a much bigger space, all of North America.
Yeah, exactly.
At least 2 meters apart. That's Canadian, or that's going to be 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
For Americans who are watching.
Exactly.
Excellent. So this series has been nominated for at least 2 Aurora Awards, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. And which books, or one each, or how did that work?
Yeah. So hopefully third time's the charm. Nominate the Wall of Wishes next year. Okay. Yeah. So the Fountain and the Westwoods have both been Aurora Award finalists. They haven't won yet. It's tough, right? You're with a small publisher, and so people don't always know what you're all about. But yeah, Wall of Wishes, hopefully third time's the charm. I would love to take that one home this time.
But you did win a different award for.
Yeah. So the Fountain actually won a bronze medallion from Reader's Favorite out of the States for Best Young Adult Romance. So that was really cool. They actually sent me a big medal, and my kids are sport kids, and they get a lot of medals. And sometimes I go for like runs with thousands of people, and then they give me a medal for that, but I never win the race. I don't care about the medal. This medal I was so proud of. I was like, I actually won this thing. I don't know if you want to scroll back in my social media. I don't remember when it was, but I actually wore that medal all day long and had people take pictures of me. I was out buying milk and I went to the rink and I went, I don't know, all over the place.
It was
I wore
like
that
you had
medal.
won gold at the Olympics.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's kind of fun because I bring that medal, especially to school visits, when I'm in a classroom, and I just set it up with the fountain and stuff. But sometimes I'll stick the medal there because it's just with all my stuff that I bring. And people will be like, "How did you win a medal?" I'm like, "Isn't that cool? It's like a sporting event, except I wrote a book." Yeah, I like it.
So, what do you have like on your website, for example, for schools or other people who are interested in having you a book club that maybe wants to have you talk about the book? How do people get a hold of you to organize such things, or do you
Yeah.
how do you make that easy for them?
Absolutely. So if you go to my my website, which is up there on the screen at suzyvadori.wordpress.com, there's a whole tab on school visits. So right now I have been doing a few, not as many, but virtual visits, which is really cool because it's opened up some opportunity to do things that are even further. So there's lots of different things that I actually teach and a bunch of different programs, but I'll also customize things. And so all of my programs are there on the website.
Cool. So how much of that historic businesswoman planner actually goes into your author business? Is pretty much everything you've learned from all the previous roles you've played go into that business?
Yeah, I would say, you know, and people often ask, and I also am a book coach, and so I do work with people on their marketing strategies, and I do also do free calls to get started because I love business. And I think what's so fascinating about the book business is that everybody's kind of doing their own thing with their own experiences. And so I've literally talked to hundreds, like if not 1,000 authors over the past 5 years about their business. And I do it over coffee, I do it whatever. And you know, if you want, I'll answer questions all day long, every day for free. I just, you know, if you want me to actually put together a plan and stuff, then obviously you have to pay for that. But yeah, I just think the biggest thing is tenacity. Like running companies is not an easy thing to do, and things go wrong, and just being able to look at it and be like, okay, well, that didn't work, and pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot. And so when this pandemic hit, it's like, okay, there's a saying in marketing, if you can't fix it, feature it. So how do you turn it around, and how do you have a little bit of fun with it? Right? Like, how do you, so I don't know, is this going to work? I have no idea. I'll let you know. I'll let you know if the wall is gone at the end of the week, then it works. But yeah, you were saying, I made a video, I did a this, I did a that, but that's who I am. It's like, if I can dream it up, I will do it. I will try it. I won't do it again if it doesn't work. Well, I'll try it once. Right?
Well, you'll bring water into the bookstore once, and then you turn it into
No, I
lollipop.
figured that one out before. I brought water into the event and I realized how terrible it was. And then I was like, wow, good thing I didn't try that in a bookstore. Can you imagine? I just had no clue. Here's this lady coming up, first time author, with this fountain full of water. Can you imagine what the bookstore people might have thought of me? Like I didn't do that, but I thought I was going to.
Might not have been invited back.
No.
So we've just rounded out the half hour. I'm gonna want to wrap up soon, but I thought I would throw this question out because I think it's a little apropos. So you're standing in front of this beautiful fountain in this gorgeous virtual event space, and somebody's handed you a sanitized penny and asks you to make a wish, and the wish is, here's something that I wish when Suzy was first starting off as a writer. This is something that I wish Suzy knew that she knows now.
Whew, you're putting me on the spot here. I actually never wish on my fountain. I think that wishes have consequences, which is what the whole series is about. So it's terrifying, right? Like the ripple effect that one wish can make. But I think what I tell, I guess, because I tell this to new authors most often, is just to play to your strengths. And I think I knew that, but I know that even more now, because a lot of people come to me and say, you know, I can't do what you do. I might be one of the only extroverted authors in Canada. And by extroverted, I mean like 101,000,000% extroverted. And Mark can attest to that, because people are like, how do you do those conferences and stay up and talk to it? And I'm like, I love that. I thrive on it. But yes, play to your strengths. There's people that are are really good at other things. You know, for me, it's been in-person sales and you know, public speaking and all of these things. But for authors who aren't comfortable doing that and go like, well, that is not for me, I couldn't do that. You might be better at other things, right? Like you might be better at figuring out the online sales algorithms and things that I don't spend a lot of time on, honestly. So, you know, just play to your strengths and be yourself. And I'm more myself. When you were introducing me and saying she used to be the chief operating officer, I'm like, wow, that feels like a million years ago. You know, it feels like an actual million years ago. Like
Really?
I don't even, it's not me anymore. I guess I'm the COO of my own, or the CEO of my own book business. See, I'm more business suit today.
There you go. Awesome. So Suzy, where can people find out more about you online?
SuzyVadori.wordpress.com is a great place. It's usually up to date. And please follow me on social media and reach out and say hi. I love hearing from readers. I love hearing from writers. I love answering questions. And just communicate. And, you know, a lot of people say that, but I actually mean it. Please say hello. That's what this is all about. And that's, you know, the strength of it. And if I can help and lift up another author the way that all of you in the writing community have lifted me up over the years, I will. So just ask.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me, Suzy. And thank you to the live audience for your comments and questions.
Thanks, guys. And thank you, Mark.